Hello, I'm Stuart Barker, the ISO 27001 Ninja, and in this tutorial we're going to look at ISO 27001 Annex A 5.10 Acceptable Use of Information and Other Associated Assets. So this is part of the asset management controls. In the previous one we looked at asset inventories. Now we're going to be looking at acceptable use. We're going to take a look at what it is. I'm going to give you some tips, some tricks. I'm going to show you how to implement it so that you can be ultimately successful when it comes to your ISO 27001 certification. So let's take a deep dive in. We're going to start off with a definition, right? What is the definition? Rules for the acceptable use and procedures for handling information and other associated, easy for you to say, associated assets should be identified, documented, and implemented. So that's what the control is saying, that's what the control is looking for. When it comes to the implementation of it, a couple of ways that we're going to do it. The first is we're going to have a topic-specific policy. We're going to have an acceptable use policy. This shouldn't be something that is new to you. It shouldn't be like, oh wow, right, this is like a revelation. Every organization that you've ever been in has probably got an acceptable use policy. The acceptable use policy is going to be the policy that sets out what it is that people can do, what it is that people can't do when it comes to company assets, including data, physical devices, etc. So you know the kind of thing, right? An acceptable use policy says, you know, you're not going to use email for things that aren't company related. You're not going to sign up to bulletin boards. You're not going to access content that is illegal. You're not going to access content such as gambling and gaming and all that good quality stuff. It will say things like don't run your own business using company assets, things like that. So very, very high level, you know, usually given from a HR department, but you're going to need that acceptable use policy. Do I have a more detailed acceptable use policy than that as a template? Of course I do. I'm the ISO 27001 Ninja, available individually to download. You can go to the hightable.io ISO 27001 template store and download yourself a copy of it for around about £10, you know, and then go and get on with your life. There is another video that goes through the acceptable use policy in detail, and there is a sample that you can click where you can see a sample, slightly redacted PDF version of that. But we're going to need that policy. That policy is going to follow the other control and other tutorial on how to implement policies in our organization. You know, it's going to be documented, it's going to be approved, it's going to be signed off, it's going to be communicated, and then staff are going to accept that they accept that policy. That's the quickest, the easiest, and the simplest way to do it. When it comes to acceptable use of assets, what we also have though is all of the other supplementary policies that we have in place, right? We have our ISO 27001 policies that are looking at things like access control, you know, password management, explaining to users what it is that we expect from them, not sharing passwords, all that good stuff that's in there. So it isn't going to be a standalone one and done, but the primary focus is going to be on the acceptable use policy, and then we're going to have all of our supplementary policies that go along with that are communicating and educating our users on what it is that we expect of them. In addition to that, we are going to have our program of training. Again, there is the clause in the tutorial on training and our communication plan, which you will have seen, and if you haven't, you should go and check out, where we're communicating as part of our culture of information security on a regular basis to people what it is that is expected of them, what it is that we want them to do, and how we want to react to certain situations. So acceptable use of acceptable use of assets. Have yourself an acceptable use policy, put in your supplementary policies, communicate to your staff, implement that culture, and you are going to be absolutely golden. If there are specifics that you require in terms of the assets that you identified under the previous tutorial, so in your asset inventories you have specific assets that need specific things dealing within a specific way, then you're going to write your processes and your procedures that are based around that. Can I give you an example? Yes, I can. So sometimes it is the case that you are going to be working with clients. It might be that you have a multi-tenanted environment, or it may be that you create bespoke environments per client because certain clients have very specific requirements on you. We find this a lot within the financial services sector. Large banks will send additional contract addendums that say, in addition to whatever you're doing, this is what we expect you to do. And as part of those additional security controls, you can find certain things around acceptable use that creep in there. So it may well be that you find that you have a general acceptable use approach and then very specific requirements based on very specific clients and very specific client implementations. You're going to cover that as part of your legal and contractual requirement register and as part of your ongoing process. So acceptable use of assets, acceptable use of information, tell people what it is that you expect them to do, tell people what it is that you don't want them to do, and as I say, you are going to be absolutely golden. There is a blog that goes along with this video tutorial. Be sure to check out the blog, a lot more detail, examples, links, clicks inside there where you can do an even more deep dive. But for now, my name is Stuart Barker. I am the ISO 27001 Ninja. And until the next tutorial, peace out.